Hey guys, my name is Katie McElroy. I can't be with you guys today because I'm on my way down to Florida right now, so for a softball trip. But I'm here to talk to you today about how the Code of Hammurabi compares with the laws that we've seen listed in Exodus. So a little bit about the Code of Hammurabi. It first is usually known as the first written code of law, but actually we find, if we look back in history a little bit, that Uru-Nimgina in 2500 BC wrote the first code of laws, and then Ur-Nammu followed in 2100 BC. And those guys both came from the land of Ur, which is, if you want to think about it, that's where Abraham came from, so that can kind of compare that for you. Then Hammurabi came around in 1792, and he was the king of Babylon, and he claimed with his law that he says, "I established law and justice in the language of the land and promoted the welfare of the people." And if you look on your papers, you can see I put a map for you that's where what the land looked like in the time when he was king. And if you want to think about it, he was the king of Babylon, and it was northwest of Susa and slightly northwest of Ur, and it was also in the delta of the Euphrates, if you see it. So you can kind of think, well, they were a pretty wealthy country, and that's about what he had to deal with. So a little bit more about Hammurabi. He was the 6th of 11 kings of the old Babylonian dynasty, and this is also known as the Amorite dynasty in the Bible. And he ruled from 1728 to 1686, so if you can do the math, that's 43 years. And he recorded this law in his second year as ruler, which is established in his prologue to the laws in the Code of Hammurabi. He felt that this was commissioned to him by Shamash, who was the sun god of their time, and so he really felt it was like divinely inspired to write down this code. A little bit more about the code is that it was regulated like everything that you could think of. It regulated family life to physicians' fees to building requirements, and this code specified different penalties for 3 different social classes, which is out of this world for that time period, because this allowed laws to protect the elite, the freemen, and the slaves. The elite are more the royalty and the guardsmen, while the free are the artisans and the crafts makers and the metal workers, and the slaves are obviously what we would know today as slaves. These laws also were intended to protect women and children, so as you can see, Hammurabi really tried to establish the fact that minorities were important in his time and community. And what's most influential and revolutionary about his law is that he intended it to outlast his own rule. All the other kings, when they made laws, they made them for their rule and their rule only. But he intended his, as you can see by the quote, to outlast his rule completely. If you look at the next slide that I prepared for you guys, it says that there's a list of laws, and those are the categories that the laws were in. And there was a total of 282 laws within these categories, and they ranged, like I said, they had a vast variety. There's one law specified as careless tree falling that stated if a man had to cut down a tree in another man's orchard without permission of the owner of the orchard, he shall pay half a man of silver. And then they have the more intense laws of kidnapping, where if a man has stolen another man's child, he shall be killed. So as you can see, they do cover the vast variety. Now on to the comparison with Exodus. In the code we see that Law 209 states, if any man has struck down the daughter of a man and has made her lose her unborn child, he shall pay 10 shekels of silver for the feotus. Exodus 21:22 says, if 2 men who are fighting hit a pregnant woman and she gives birth prematurely, but there is no serious injury, the offender must be fined whatever the woman's husband and courts allow. So as you can see, if the death of a baby comes around because the 2 men are fighting, it's just a fine. So it's not necessarily a serious breaking of the law. But then Law 210 says, if that woman has died, they shall kill his daughter. So there you see the life for life take part, and this is what the actual lex talionis portion comes in. In Exodus 21:23-25 it says, but if there is serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, and bruise for bruise. So this is, like I said, the actual lex talionis part, where if you do one thing, you're reprimanded with the same ordeal, and like it comes back to you. And to compare Exodus with the Code of Hammurabi, they say, some scholars think that Exodus was taken from that code, whereas some believe that this was just a basis for community life, that you can't really live in a community without laws to govern yourself as a way of people hurting people. So if you think about it, they didn't have TV, they didn't have anything else to occupy their time except relationships. So these laws were almost necessary in any community-oriented way of life. So that is what most scholars think about the code. It can be interpreted as figurative and literal either way, but mostly it just comes down to the fact that that was community life and that was how it had to be lived. Otherwise you wouldn't survive. So thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a really good spring break.